So starting inside at the source of power, let's pop the panel cover off. I didn't actually perform this portion of the work. We had a couple days to infill due to weather, and so I put some apprentices on this project. It's time for evaluation. First thing I noticed is the breaker never got labeled, so we'll take care of that. We've got a pretty significant feed. We used MC cable to bring in full 100 amps of power, or at least capacity, and we landed it on a 60 amp breaker, which is a spare. What you see going on here is the wire that was being utilized in the MC cable, which is aluminum for cost effectiveness, about 1/3 the price of copper, has to be reduced in its size in order to be terminated on the breaker. The 60 amp breaker could not accommodate the full aluminum conductor. So we installed some Polaris lugs here to reduce that wire size. Overall, this panel still needs some help. There's dust in it from the CNC shop that used to be here, and it's getting pretty crowded with those Polaris lugs. So I have to think about how I feel about that. The alternative was using pin adapters, which you do run out of space in that wire bending radius, pin adapters, or trimming down the conductors in order to land them on the breaker. So pick your poison. Sometimes you've got real constraints. Either accessory junctions in the panel, 1, trim your wire, 2, pin adapters and violate wire bending radius, 3, it's just kind of a little tight there. Maybe those are my overall opinions here. Let's follow the feed out, and then at the end of this video, we're gonna discuss how much power do you need in your shop. All right, so we've got these metal bar joists. That MC cable runs about 60 feet to the back of the shop through the metal bar joists, and because it's resting, it's nestled in that V shape of the bar joist. By my interpretation of the code, that is considered secured and supported. I would like to see a distinct strap in proximity to that box, that exterior junction box. And the reason for that J box there is to transition from MC cable to THWN-2. We've taken that THWN-2, which is a wire type rated for wet location, with the full ampacity of this circuit, exterior and underground through the conduit, so that it has the ability to pull easily through conduit and handle the dampness, wetness of an exterior installation. This is pretty decent, right? The penetrations have been sealed. I don't like the fact that the mounting hole for the J-box fell on a rib, and so that ribs suffered some damage. Could have just re-drilled the J-box and moved that bolt over, but it's secure and it's waterproof. There's a high quality sealant on that. So we've got a short underground run, down and up and over. This one, if you wanted to get real picky, being more than 3 feet from the conduit body is probably out of code, but man, there's a solid anchor right there. I'm not gonna fuss about that. This is Schedule 80 PVC because it's in an area that's considered subject to physical damage by our local interpretation of the code. So we did upsize the conduit here to 2 inch, which gives us capacity for expansion in the future if we've got something else to pop between the buildings. So overall, I'm gonna give the apprentices, let's take a look inside. Okay, the space has not been finalized, but we're inside here and there's a code violation. There's a, what's relatively nice workbench in front of the electrical panel. So I'm gonna slide this out and make a comment to just see if we can't elevate the common standard a little bit here. All right. Moment of truth. Let's see what's going on in here. Okay, all right. A few things here. I like it. It's pretty good. We've got continuous conduit all the way into the panel. Sometimes you hit a tight spot, and I've seen so many installations where people want to cheat, and the conduit's not continuous. The fittings aren't fully seated. There are little gaps. But man, this is continuous. It's real clean and tidy. I like the fact that there's a lock nut for the mechanical connection on the male adapter and a bushing. Just even a PVC fitting without a bushing, and the amount of stress that's on those wires breaking over that edge right there, I've seen those kinds of things wear through to bare metal over time. So I like the fact that the Bruce installed the bushing there. Things are terminated, grounds and neutrals are separated. We've got power. It's 60 amp breaker, but easy future capacity. If we just swap that breaker that was a leftover spare to 100 amps, well, we've got plenty of juice out here for everything that we want to do. So you might be asking the question, how much power do I need for my shop? What's code? What are considerations? Let me tell you what an electrician considers when bringing power to a new structure. First of all, there are some basic building blocks of electrical systems. If you've got a shop, 20 amp minimum, no question. If you've got a service to a structure, 100 amp minimum if it's a metered service. But if you have something that's freestanding and it's an accessory structure, a secondary structure on premises, what are you looking at? This is the basic code to consider. Your power that you bring to the structure must be sufficient for the load that is served. Easy. That means bring enough power. Like, consider what's going to be in the space and bring enough power to those things. Now, one of the misconceptions that rookies make is they add up all their breakers that they're planning. They might get 10, 20 amp breakers and automatically think that 10 times 20, that's a 200 amp service. I'm bringing 200 amps. But that's not how that functions. Those breakers are not serving 20 amp loads. So the loads are not about the breakers or the wires. The loads are about the appliances and how they function in the space. By appliances, I'm expanding that to mean fixtures, portable cord and plug connected appliances like vacuum cleaners, heaters, furnaces, all types of appliances, apparatus, and fixtures. So consider the loads that are being served. If you want to get in depth, Article 220 of the National Electrical Code has the calculation for determining that on an official basis. But the rule of thumb here is provide sufficient power. The code doesn't actually require room for growth. Future proofing, that's not a code, that's best practice. So differentiating between code minimum and best practice in that respect is important, and that's a critical, if you're a provider, if you're an electrician, that's a critical conversation to have with a customer, because when you inform them and you give them the power of choice and they have more clarity than the conversation they had with the last guy who said, no, let me tell you, what you need is, no, you're forcing your opinion upon the customer, you're forcing your concept of best practice. So in this situation, we've got a gas furnace, ceiling hung. We've got LED lights. We've got basic power tools. We don't have any projected significant draws on the space. And so our 60 amp current feed to this structure with an easy transition to a 100 amp future proofed is plenty. What is code minimum? One 20 amp circuit. That's code minimum. Now the code does reference location of lighting outlets and things of that type, particularly at egress doors, but 120 amp circuit is sufficient. So we do actually have an off-grid project that's here right now. It's a beautiful Class C RV, but it's too big for these garage doors, so it's in the main shop. Check our next video for an overview on battery storage for recreational vehicles, and subscribe to Electric Pro Academy for real skills to make real money.